Well, today's gospel, quite simply, is a reminder of how we all need Jesus. And yet, every day we encounter the tensions that exist among family members, neighbors, coworkers, and even in our own hearts. One of these is the tension between trying to discipline the desires of the flesh and the presumption that we can do whatever we want because God is merciful. When Paul wrote today's reading to the Romans, it was to guide two groups of people who were at odds with one another and also at odds in following Jesus. Back in this time, there was a growing confusion in the Roman church. As we know, in each generation, we encounter this happening many times over the very same topics through each generation. In this case, on one hand, you had the old law-bound group. These were the Jewish believers who still measured righteousness by the Mosaic law. And then there were the Gentile believers who felt that because they were under the Holy Spirit and no longer bound by the Mosaic law, they could do whatever they wanted. Well, that created a lot of tension, as you might imagine. So Paul wrote to prevent the rupture of the church and to make sure that the people didn't reduce the gospel to legalism or to fall into licentiousness by having a permissive understanding of what it meant to move from the Mosaic law to the gospel message of Jesus. In Paul's letter, we heard that there were still debtors to the flesh. Paul chose to use the term debtor because in the Roman world in his time, a debtor was bound to repay the debt, but often under harsh conditions. So Paul uses this context to underscore that apart from Christ, humanity is bound to the flesh's power. And only by the Spirit's power are we released from this. And, as he mentions, it is through the Spirit that we also become children of God, heirs with Christ. So this leads us to wonder, where are we today in our time? Are we debtors to the flesh in how we prioritize our schedules? Do we trade our time for God and family and friends for self-indulgence or comfort? Do we find ourselves struggling to control our spending habits, our time online, or taking in entertainment that degrades the goodness of humanity? And on the other hand, are we speaking and acting in judgmental, legalistic approach to our families, our neighbors, even our fellow parishioners? Do we recognize that the teachings of the church, which flow from the gospel, are meant to give us a path to new life, and that God desires all people to come to know and love the way of Jesus? My brothers and sisters, no matter how we answer those questions today, we do have to keep in mind, in order to counter being debtors to the flesh, we need to remember that the Spirit has bought us at a great price, Jesus' sacrifice on the cross, repaying a debt we could never repay on our own. And that this payment is complete and efficacious for all who act on his word and are open to the grace of the Holy Spirit. And likewise, when we struggle with being legalistic in our relationships, when we fall into being judgmental or believing that we are better than others in God's eyes, then we can ask for the Holy Spirit to help us have the heart of Jesus, a patient and a compassionate heart that never forgets that Jesus came to save all, even those that at times we struggle to like, but are called to love. Come, Holy Spirit, enliven us all with the Spirit of God this day.